Hi, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, based here in beautiful sunny Naples, Florida. Today we take a look at the lens that arguably began the transition that has taken Sigma from a value lens manufacturer to literally taking the photographic world by storm, as they've produced a string of incredible lenses at amazing prices. Though it's been out for a while, the Sigma 85mm f1.4 was one of the last major lens announcements prior to Sigma's brand new Global Vision makeover. But you know, they must have been onto something, as the 85 was very well received by a lot of notable photographers. Many of those said it was even better than Canon's legendary 85mm f1.2L. We're going to run the Sigma through a series of tests today to see how this highly regarded lens lives up to the praise that has just been heaped upon it. Even though the Sigma 85mm f1.4 isn't labeled as part of Sigma's new Global Vision lens series with the C or the A or the S designation, there are many photographers out there, like me, who look at this lens as the first step in Sigma's new direction, the first in a series of blockbusters by a renewed and reinvigorated Sigma Lens Corporation. So, do those renewed efforts at Sigma translate into real photographic goodness with the 85mm f1.4? Well, let's have a look. Okay, well, first up is build quality. Let me start by saying this is a very well-built lens. Even though it isn't quite up to the new Global Vision lens build standard, the 85 is built at a very high level. The materials are smooth, and it has a nice matte finish. It also has a lens hood. The lens hood is really interesting in that it's made out of one of the smoothest and finest finishes that I've ever felt. The material it's made out of is just okay, but the finish is on the order of, well, you know, it's really kind of hard to explain, but I almost feel like I'm touching somebody's hand. It also locks into place with authority, which is very reassuring. On the inside, there are 11 elements in 8 groups, and it comes in at 1.6 pounds, which is actually pretty heavy for a pretty short lens like this. It has 9 aperture blades for nice bokeh rendering. Now, check out that front element. It's nearly as intimidating as Canon's 85L. One look at this bad boy and your clients will know that you mean business. The focus ring is smooth, but it doesn't really offer a whole lot of resistance. On the downside, the lens is not weather sealed, but apart from that, there's really not a whole lot to fault here. For build quality, the 85 is a solid effort and easily gets a 9 out of 10. Okay, so next up is focus speed and accuracy. Now, maybe it's just me, but I buy a lot of lenses, and for some inexplicable reason, I have more focus issues with my Sigma lenses than with any other manufacturer. And those focus problems run the gamut, from front focusing to back focusing to jackhammering, etc. It's like, what's the focus problem du jour today with my Sigma lens? Now, I've used lenses from Tokina, Tamron, and Sigma, and for some reason I have exponentially, and I mean exponentially, more focus problems with my Sigma lenses than all those other manufacturers that I just mentioned. And as much as it's killing me to admit it, the 85 f1.4 is unfortunately no exception in this regard. With the Sigma, or should I say with this Sigma, I find that if my subject is close, say within 8 feet, this thing nails focus almost every time, which is great because I do a lot of portraits, and this lens is great for the subject isolation needed for a portrait. And those are generally up close, you know, within 10 feet or so of the camera. Now on the flip side, as the subject moves further away, say 10, 15, 20 feet or more, then the focus really becomes a mixed bag, at least my copy of the 85 anyway, especially at wide apertures. Now, to defend the 85, more often than not, you buy a wide aperture 85mm lens for its subject isolation ability in portraiture, and in that regard, the Sigma excels. As for focus speed, it's much faster than the Canon 85L. I'd go as far as to say that it's twice as fast. And then with portraiture, as you know, fast focus isn't always a primary consideration. It's nice, but I wouldn't necessarily make or break the buying decision based on focus speed. The bottom line here is, for focus speed and accuracy, the Sigma is competent, and it excels if your main purpose in using a lens like this is for portraiture. Now, for the record, the Canon 85L doesn't focus all that much more accurately, and focus-wise, it's really slow, which makes the Sigma pretty appealing. For focus speed and accuracy, the Sigma gets an 8 out of 10. So up next is optical quality and the quality of the results. As a testament to the lens's optical quality, we're actually shooting this segment with the Sigma 85mm. Now, let me sum up the Sigma this way. For portraits, the Sigma is nothing short of amazing. Seriously, the results I'm getting are right up there with my Canon 85L. I've had the lens for a few months now, and I'm really impressed. The difference, in my opinion, between f1.4 and f1.2 in terms of what matters, that is sharpness, subject isolation, and bokeh rendering, are so nominal that I really can't tell the difference. When you couple that with the faster focus of the Sigma, then you really have a winner on your hands. But, as with all of my reviews, it's one thing for me to talk about optical quality. It's probably better if I just show you optical quality. The next minute or so will be a series of stills and video clips showcasing the optics of the Sigma 85mm f1.4. And in a word, they're impressive. So up next is value. The Sigma 85mm f1.4 isn't cheap, but relatively speaking, it's a bargain basement deal, especially when you consider the Canon 85L is $1,999 right now at B&H, and the Nikon 85mm f1.4 is a whopping $1,649. Then at $969, the Sigma looks like a deal, and comparatively speaking, it is. Now, there are more economical alternatives out there like Canon's 85 f1.8, which to me is a great deal and a great lens. And Nikon also has an 85 f1.8 for considerably less money as well. Now you give up a fraction of a stop in aperture and slightly less in build, but they're both pretty great lenses optically. But the Sigma has the high end of both Nikon and Canon in their crosshairs, and those are the lenses that we're going to compare the Sigma to with regard to value. Now, I'm a big believer in first-party glass from both Nikon and Canon, but frankly at $1,999, to my eye anyway, the Canon seems a bit overpriced. Okay, it seems a lot overpriced. I know, the f1.2 aperture, but truthfully, I just can't see that much of a difference. Certainly not one that justifies slightly less than double the price. So the bottom line here is for value, Sigma hits it out of the park again, as the 85mm f1.4 gets a very solid 9.5 out of 10. By the way, we would have scored the Sigma a 10 if in fact there weren't much lower priced and great lenses out there from both Nikon and Canon. Okay, well, it's that time again. Time to draw some conclusions and wrap up this review of the Sigma 85mm f1.4. In a nutshell, it goes like this. The build quality. It's nearly Canon L quality, from the materials used to build it to the focus ring to the focus motor. It's a well-built, high-quality package. The Sigma has more aperture blades in its higher-priced competition, and it even comes with a really nice lens hood. For build, we give the Sigma a 9 out of 10. Focus speed and accuracy. The focus motor isn't lightning quick, but it puts the Canon 85L to shame. And for portraits, it's more than adequate. On that note, I found that my copy of the lens much more accurate with subjects that were close to the camera, more so than subjects that were further away, say from beyond 10 feet or more. I found that as the subject moved further away, the Sigma became maddeningly inconsistent in the focus department. But just the same, I bought this lens to do portraits, and in that regard, the Sigma does exceptionally well. I found it much more consistent than my 85L. That, of course, may also have something to do with, in the case of both lenses, with the really narrow depth of field at f1.2 of the Canon and f1.4 of the Sigma. On more than one occasion, I'm sure that either me or the subject may have moved slightly, causing an out-of-focus shot. Anyway, it's not perfect, but the focus is good enough. So for focus speed and accuracy, the Sigma gets an 8 out of 10. optical quality, and the quality of the results. As I mentioned previously, if you're shooting portraits, you'll no doubt find the Sigma to be a great lens that you'll want to use over and over and over again. The Sigma also has some value as a video lens as well. With a few minor adjustments, the Sigma can get you award-winning results, and straight out of camera, the results can be pretty impressive as well. So for optical quality and the quality of the results, the Sigma gets a 9 and 9.5 out of 10, respectively. Value. Again, I keep saying this, it's not cheap, but at nearly half the price of the Canon and Nikon 85mm, their high-end versions, it makes it an exceptional value when you compare to the prices of both of those high-end offerings from both manufacturers. Keep in mind also that Canon and Nikon both have competent and value-priced f1.8 versions of the 85mm lens, and both are for considerably less money than the Sigma. But as you can imagine, the Sigma is going after the high end, and by and large they succeed. It's only because of the f1.8 lenses from both Canon and Nikon that the Sigma gets a 9.5 out of 10. Without those two lenses, the Sigma would easily be a 10 out of 10. Overall, the Sigma gets a 45 out of 50 and just squeaks out our highly recommended rating. The final word. If you're serious about your portraits, or if you make a living on portraits, then you'll probably want to consider the Sigma 85mm. It's a well-built, optically excellent lens that represents a great value when compared to the high end of both Canon and Nikon. Just keep in mind the focus may be a bit more erratic than you bargained for. This is Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, based here in beautiful, sunny Naples, Florida. If you like these reviews and would like to see more of them, please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and until the next time, happy shooting.